Welcome to Expedient Means with Lin A. Wei on Time Monk Radio. Lin currently resides in China and is a founder and head teacher of Guizhen Philo-Cultural Society. He has extensive experience in Buddhist and Taoist meditation, Qigong, martial arts, and traditional Chinese medicine. To learn more about Lin, please visit his website at www.guizhenhui.net. This program is dedicated to exploring various facets of these teachings with hopes of making the knowledge more widely accessible. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so today we're going to discuss the topic of death and rebirth and maybe discuss some of the differences between the various religious beliefs among the different religions. So, would you care to begin on that topic, Lynn?
Maybe.
Please.
Well, thank you. In reference to like discussing various religions, I mean, I'm not a scholar, so I don't know full details of what various religious practices entail. But I can touch superficially on some ideas. And basically, with that, we can go into a little bit more detail. So, when we're talking about death and rebirth, basically the common idea is that, I'm going to leave the atheists out for the time being. Sorry about that, guys, because the world isn't just all about annihilation. You die and that's it. Perhaps, maybe. Basically, generally, our physical body dies, and we have this big question mark for those who are living that go, what happens? What do we do? What happens? Well, a lot of religions tell you what happens, but still, there's always that hole inside the mind or the heart, missing that kind of satisfaction that says, hey, this is really the truth. And then people have to mix it up with like faith, we have to have faith that these teachings tell us exactly what's going on. Whether having the faith in the teachings of whatever tradition it is right or wrong is not the question. See, the right or wrong of certain things becomes trivial. So basically, it's kind of likened to how was the universe formed? We have science that tells us about the Big Bang, but then like what created the Big Bang, and then what created that, and it gets very trivial. It kind of takes you away from actually finding out what actually did happen. And how do we find out what happened? Well, open up your wisdom, and it's not something very simple to open up, but it's not very hard either. When we say open, is just the term used just so you can practice. But wisdom is always there, always present. What you're doing is eradicating the extras of the mind, the false thinking. Then you can see the truth. So hopefully we can try in this little section here, on this topic, to touch somewhat close on the truth. Maybe it's the truth, and maybe it's not the truth. What happens when we die? Well, religions, like I said before, tell us we can go to hell, we can go to heaven. They tell us ways to go to heaven, and they even tell us ways to go to hell. You do good, you go to the good place. You do bad, you go to the bad place. Some religions go even deeper and tell you the causes of what allows you to end up going to these places. It's not that someone sits there and says, hey, you're a good guy, I want you with me. I want you up here in the heavens. Or you've been bad, you got to come to be part of my world. And then you get taken to the hells. We're going to speak straight up on just what happens when you die, that process. Now, it has to be said that, how does one know that this is what happens when you die? I mean, it's a personal experience, unless you've died and then you come back, maybe that's not actually the state and you're in some type of semi-state of death, where you weren't fully dead from your body and then you just came back. So yeah, there's a lot of speculation on that too. So we'll just say it straight. When the physical body is finished, that energy, okay, many call it soul, spirit, or whatnot. Well, that energy is just mind. The body is done. The karmic energy, the karmic vibration of that body is done. Also understand, when I say words like karma and reincarnation stuff, most people are going to look at, oh, those are Buddhist terms. No, this is English terms. These are English languages and mainly used in a Buddhist sense, but we're using them because that's the language we have. Give me another language and I can use the words there too, and they'll probably say, oh, that's mainly spoken in Buddhism too. But the fact is, it's a word. So that's the tool I have. Let's try to look past, the covering and get to the real idea.
It's funny because I've read some of the Dead Sea Scroll writings, which many people argue is where the roots of Christianity lie. And when you look in those writings, it actually does discuss reincarnation, and it says I can't remember the exact quote, but it says something to the effect of man and soul will be reborn, and he will drink from the water of forgetfulness. So I half wonder if some of these teachings were originally there and then got expunged for, say, political reasons or something.
Possibly. I mean, basically, when you have a teaching over many, many years, the person who's put out the teaching, after they're done and they're dead, there's no one really to say what is what anymore, except the followers of that specific teacher. People are always going to be subject to greed, anger, ignorance, desire. Why? Because they have the conditions to be susceptible to it. It's not an original sin. It's not something original in them. It's just the fact that they've accumulated such cause. They've accumulated the energy for these causes. They nourish these causes for a long time. So people will always utilize what they want and what they have in order to have control, only because that may be part of their karmic makeup. So I personally, in my own specific opinion, do feel that things have been held back in certain circles in order to maintain control. Have people be focused on one specific type of person for their salvation, whether it's a god, or one specific god, or a person in general. It's unfortunate. That's my opinion. You can say I'm wrong, but seriously, that's your opinion too.
Well, politically speaking, I mean, if you want to keep people fearful and you want to have the utmost control over people, the best bet would be to make them believe that this is the only shot they've got, and if they screw this up, then that's it. You're done.
True. So, okay, now we can just go into the reincarnation thing, and death and the mind and all that stuff. Well, here, when the body's dead, there's no need for that vibration of energy we'll call soul. We'll just say soul, just for the sake of saying. I'm speaking in a very superficial manner, not going deep yet. There's no reason for the soul to be there. There's no conditions keeping it there. So it goes on. Where does it go? What happens? Well, basically, when we're dead, okay, our soul, where does it go? It goes wherever its karmic affinity is. Now, we'll say the soul and mind are together. You can do that too. Basically, what you've done in this life and what you've done in many lives accumulate over time and then thrust you when it's ripe, when that energy is nourished high enough, when it's ripe enough to manifest a specific state, it thrusts you into the realm that is fitting for that vibration of energy. It could be a hell's, it could be a heaven. Hell's basically is what we created, the amount of energy accumulated in one specific state of mind. It can be a mass conscious state of mind, meaning so many beings had the same or similar vibration, and it created the state or realm that attracts anything that's similar, and then we're thrusted into that state. Heavens, specific heavens out there have specific requirements. If we have a certain type of high vibration or a certain type of vibration, we'll be pulled into those areas. Usually when people die, some who have had near-death experiences state that they've seen a dark tunnel with a light at the end of it. And usually that's a common experience between most people who are dying, or most people who basically have died, and then somehow come back again um, in their body again, or come back to tell their loved ones what was going on. Basically, when one dies, some experiences they had was they have their family members who died in that lifetime that they were in, go to meet them and guide them somewhere, guide them to a beautiful place. But we have to think, our loved ones have died already. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, and then we die. I mean, they died 20 years before us, sorry, and then we die. Are they still there? I mean, they have had to be reincarnated already. In the Buddhist tradition, I believe it's a 49 days, and then their cycle goes right into it. And they go right into their next turn, their next lifetime or experience of what goes on, or they end up in specific realms that may not be on this earth. So they've getting dragged by beings that look like their family and then getting taken to a specific place. Perhaps it's beings in the heavens who want to guide this person to the heavenly realms, and they're using familiar people to make this person feel safe and to go with them. Sometimes it's ghosts or the demons or other spirits that want to take you and make you part of their group. And so they will turn around, make themselves look like people you're familiar with, and guide you to a beautiful place. And then when you least expect it, your energy starts to change its vibration, and then you become part of them over time.
This is
So yeah,
sorry, I was just going to ask a quick question, and this is maybe just more philosophical than anything, but possibly, time isn't as linear as we think it is, and who's to say that we couldn't see a relative in a spirit form, while they're supposedly reincarnated in another life?
It's possible. I mean, things are so possible. That's why when you're physically dead, you don't have specific things holding your mind down, like the elements of the body, energetic vibrations of the body. You don't have these things locking you down, so certain views of that body are diminished. Okay? But we may still hold on to views that attach us to a self. And those things create states. So when you're dead, it's like no holds barred almost. Whatever you're thinking, things are just coming out. And we can't tell the difference between which one is the quote-unquote true state or true experience that's going to bring us wholesomeness, or the false one that's not going to bring us wholesomeness. It's hard to distinguish if we don't have cultivation. It is. Or if you don't have a guideline like a religion, like Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatnot. Because if you have a guideline that keeps your mind strict on, this is what is going to happen to me, and I better be making sure I fit into these guidelines so I don't screw up, and you really have strong faith in what you're practicing, then it's going to be very difficult for any external influences to try to steer you away. That's why a lot of religions are so strong on making sure you follow the rules of the right way of the practice for them. So you don't go off deviant paths when you're dead. You don't go into following demonic states or whatever the case is. That you go to where you're supposed to be going according to that religion. Is that actually true? Well, interesting. We said in a few shows before about how the Buddhas and different gods or whatnot that are out there, they create expedients. Hence the name of our show. Expedient means, right? They make expedients to teach people to cultivate virtue, merit, to do good things. They create these things so people can hone in their mind or hone in their quality, so they can lead a life that brings them to a result that is fruitful or wholesome. Okay, so be it as it may, they have to pray every Sunday, and they do it every single Sunday without missing a day. Even if they're in the hospital, they take a cross, they take the Bible, and they're praying in their hospital, okay, or wherever it is. They're following the rules for that. Then they follow all the other extra rules that are part of that religion. That expedient allows them to go to a state or go into the heavens of that specific God. And in Buddhism, we recognize the God as the Judeo-Christian God, Allah, the Islamic God. Excuse me. So we see it as one God, okay? And when you follow the rules that this God put out for specific expressions of himself or of his practices, you will go to the space or the place where he says you will if you're following that practice. Now, got to understand that people make changes. People make changes to practices. So it becomes almost very difficult to find out if exactly what is being taught nowadays is exactly what's going to, be wholesome for people. It's hard.
So do these heavens, and again, this is more of a philosophical or metaphysical question, do these heavens actually exist on their own, or do they just exist because our mind creates them?
Interesting enough, they are just states that are maintained because of the beings in there and their high vibration for those states. For example, the heaven, I'm looking through my notes. I take notes all the time, reading. So I want to look for this specific thing. Speaking on, when everyone talks about God and heaven and they look up, right? They look at hells and they look down. It's kind of interesting because one of the heavens in Buddhist practice and cultivation, and I'm going to say that now because we're going to section off a little bit. I'm going to section it off a little, and then I'm going to bring it all back together again. And sectioning it off only because of one thing. We want to make sure that we know the direction in which we're talking about, and then we can see how it all makes sense later. The heaven that we're always looking to, the notes I have. There are many heavens. The one closest to us is the heaven of the four kings. It lies halfway up Mount Sumeru. Mount Sumeru is our world and a great portion of the solar system, which is it's kind of like a upside down triangular shape. But we'll go into that another time when we're talking about Jambudvipa, that continent. We're talking Buddhism. But okay, let me just recite these notes. It lies halfway up Mount Sumeru on the north, south, east, and west. Okay, it covers 4 directions in our world. 4 heavenly kings. Heavenly King of increase and growth, Heavenly King of learning, Heavenly King of the broad eyes, Heavenly King who upholds his country. The lifespan is 500 years, which is 50 years equivalent. 50 years to us is equivalent to only 1 day in that heaven. Okay. So the heaven in which we're talking about, where it is like the Judeo-Christian heaven, okay, whatnot, we call it the Triestreamsa heaven. The Triestreamsa heaven is like the heaven of the 33, okay? And that's just like above, in the aspect of above the 4 kings heaven, the heaven of the 4 kings, okay? That's the end of these notes, so to a degree. I don't want to keep reciting notes. But basically, when we're looking up, that's where we're going to. Interesting how we have so many groups of people on this planet practicing so many different types of religions. And from the Buddhist cultivation aspect of things, they're practicing from the same God. And it's telling them, these groups of people have the capacity to understand it this way, so I'm going to teach it in this manner. And those groups of people, the same way. They have a different mannerism of a different capacity, so I'm going to teach this mannerism to them. 2 different practices going to the same place. It's very interesting. I mean, we can all respect those religions, but they're all going to the same place with different roads.
On a simplistic level, when you think about it though, looking down, you look at the earth, and the earth has a denseness. It's harder, it's more solid. When you look up to the sky, it's more ethereal, and that could be coming into play as well. Yeah.
So in the sense of death aspect, you're going to places that resonate with your karmic vibration, your conscious state. What you've done in this world, in this time, is going to build up, and it's going to pull you into specific places. Some people walk in the hells right in the middle of the street. They wear the melancholy look, melancholy. Sorry, I say it in different ways. A melancholy look, on their face. They don't seem very happy. They don't seem very sad, but they're a little bit off here and there. People are in the hells and they don't even realize it, because the hells are what you make. The heavens are what you make. Yet, mass vibration of specific levels of energy create realms like that. So where do we go and what happens? That's exactly what happens. We die and we're taken to specific places that resonate with our vibration.
So are these death states more like a dream type state, or, you know, 'cause, I mean, when you
Well,
think about it, when you're dreaming, you don't necessarily have full control of your reason.
well, interesting, because reason is our intellectual thinking. And then our dream state, when we're sleeping it with our physical body and our physical body is rested and we're sleeping, we still have our thinking mind going, our false thinking. So we have nothing to quote unquote like anchor down what we do in our dream. That's why things are very sporadic in the dream, you know, are very erratic and it just happen here and there. And some people cannot control. And so when you're a cultivator, you can control over time. It will happen naturally that you control what goes on in your dream state. Interestingly enough, because in the waking state, you're cultivating. In the dream state, you're experiencing that strength. So there is no difference between the dream state and the quote unquote waking state we're in every day. So the state of being in the death, where the body is dead and now you're just roaming around, it's just as real as we consider our state to be.
Just as real, but I guess not as solid or not as dense. Would that make sense?
We consider our state to be very real, very stable, very solid. But it's only because of our vibrational state that it is that way. If we look at science, that it was quantum physics, nothing is actually solid. You know, so even in the state of not being with the body, that ethereal state, solid and not solid, it don't exist. It's just the way that is. Now, when it comes into terms of how are we being reborn, well, like I said before, we are thrusted into the realms that are resonating with our vibrational state, with our conscious mind, our thinking mind. Because we have a thinking mind, we are reborn. Because we have a false thinking mind, we are reborn. But what makes that mannerism function is, and get this, and people don't worry about it, but worry about it, lust, our desires. Doesn't mean you have to cut off sex, cut off lust and want and greed and anger and ignorance and all that fun stuff. It's that it's good if you do.
So were we like Buddhas or more spiritual beings prior to incarnating on Earth, and we just kind of had a fall, almost like they discuss in Christianity, like, you know, you fall from heaven type thing, or do we just fall into sorry, that's probably bad terminology, but do we just sort of fall into a denser form?
Well, put it this way. The water on this planet, before we had anything that can heat it up, what was the temperature?
I have no idea.
Absolute neither does
zero.
Water. It was just the temperature of wherever it was. There was no differentiation between it's hot and cold because there was nothing to differentiate it. Once there was a hot water, then there is a cold water. Once there is that, there is discrimination. So, same thing with us. Because we have this state of attaching to what we think and what we feel, attaching to these world views that we create our own self, or we believe to be true from what other people state, we create this discrimination right away. And that tells us that we are not Buddhas.
Could you
and that they are Buddhas.
Sorry. I was just going to say, you know, the negative things we have in our culture now, like there's, again, to go back to our previous show, but there's such an emphasis on sex and such an emphasis on different appetites like drink, and, you know, are these things going to make us more apt to be stuck in reincarnation?
We have to wonder why. It's not just that if you have a drink, you're going to be reincarnated, or it's just that you have sex, you're going to be reincarnated. There's a reasoning, there's a functioning of these things. When you drink, It causes an imbalance in the body's chemical structure, chemical substances. It causes an imbalance in the body chemically, throws off the elemental balances in the body. Thus, it influences our vibration, our energetic vibration, and then it influences our thinking process. It influences our mind. Can you drive a car when you're shit-ass drunk and not run into sidewalks and poles and whatnot? I mean, really drunk off your face? No way. No way. Someone once spiked some drink I had out here when I was a little bit younger, like 2-3 years. No, sorry, I was in America 3 years ago, about 6 years ago. I couldn't taste the alcohol in it. I guess it was very strong, but there was no flavor to it. And they mixed it in with my water, and it felt a little thicker, but it didn't really make a difference. I was eating a lot, so whatever. All of a sudden, I started to feel a little very tipsy, and things just got very dizzy, And I'm sitting there going, whoa. And everyone's laughing because they thought it was cute, And they were friendly people, but they just never see me drink. So they wanted to see what it was like. And I started feeling very dizzy, very drunk. And like standing was difficult. So I sat down, and as they're laughing and talking and joking around with each other, I started doing breathing exercises, move out the alcohol. Then I get up straight, look at them, smile, go to the bathroom, and they just look at me. How did you do that? I said, what? They go, your face was so red, you could barely sit up straight. Standing was really difficult. You look like you were going to pass out. And 5 minutes later, you're fine. And I just started laughing. I said, I don't know. I just eat a lot, so that takes care of things. I can tell them what I do or what I did to protect myself. I mean, it worked at that time because it was necessary. It was like, it was harmful. So because that happened, I mean, I drank. And I continued to drink on purpose with them afterwards, just so they didn't get any ideas or think strangely, and then whatever. I'm not going to go to hell's for that. Because you got to control your mind. Okay, you have to control the mind. If one is having sex, if one is having sex and getting really like, wow, this is so great, and getting all into their lust and all into their want for it and whatever the case is, building up their views about it or whatnot, it's not that they're going straight to the hells. It's just that the function of that vibrational level, the vibration of consciousness, will thrust you, or will add to the momentum that thrusts you into a realm of that state, and show you the reality of that realm.
It almost reminds me of A Christmas Carol. The people that are dragging around the ghosts that are dragging around the chains that they built in their life. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a similar concept, I guess.
There you go. I mean, we can take that and go, what can we say about ghosts? Where did they go? Or spirits? People mistaking ghosts and spirits for each other. And they're two different things. Ghosts, spirits, demons, gods, demigods. Why they call them demigods? Because they have certain blessings, but they don't have complete blessings. To be in the full God state. So they're always fighting to be in their God's position. The one overseer of the specific realm. They can never beat them because they don't have the virtue to be in the seat of one who oversees a specific realm. Yeah? But these ghosts and whatnot, what happens when those ghosts don't go to the heavens or the hells, and how are they still around here? I mean, don't people go to specific places? Well, some don't have the conditions to do that. Some have the conditions to just roam and roam and roam and roam because they're so attached. So the momentum of them being attached builds up so much that they just get stuck to the state of being around, to being alive. They think they're still alive. Over time, they become so angry and whatnot. They change. They cultivate the anger. They cultivate the frustration. They become demonic. It takes a long time. Excuse me. Until that state changes, they'll stay that way. And when it does change, then they'll go to the next state that's supposed to be their vibrational realm that resonates with them. So they may end up going to the hells. Who knows? They may end up going to the heavens. But remember, it's all based on what they've created.
I almost wonder if a lot of the problems and confusion and disagreement between the religions is just the terminology. For instance, in the Judeo-Christian system, instead of talking about demigods, we talk about angels. Are they essentially the same type of beings?
Well, they have a specific function to their karma. They may be somewhat enlightened, but they're in a state of service. There's specific realms for these beings. With the angels, we consider them bird-like beings. There's certain worlds out there that have beings that look like birds. Okay, and they're in a specific state in the specific heavens out there, and they have functions. Some are messengers, and some are do-gooders. They service humanity, or they service not just humanity. We're not the only beings in this whole entire gigantic universe that's filled with billions of other universes. We're not the only beings out there, but they service living beings. Or they're out there they're out there just in case, whatever. But that's their state. Their state is just that. They may not do anything, but that's their state.
So these people that have near-death experiences, is that just a transitory thing? Is that just the soul separating from the body? What is that state?
The soul leaving the body. Usually during a traumatic experience, they say commonly, and the soul jumps out of the body appears dead, and then it comes back in. Just think of it as a cultivation method of leaving the body and going out and roaming around. There's a specific name for it. I don't remember the name.
Astral projection, I believe. Or out-of-body experience, same thing.
Okay, yeah. I'm talking more for exactly. Taking the yin body and traveling throughout all time and space or whatever, the out-of-body experiences, exactly. So it's basically just that. Experiencing that. Some people experience it in a different way. Some people don't. When you purposely practice it, it may feel like you have popping going on in your ears and something is ripping right out of your head. And then when you return back to your body, it almost feels like you're slamming into the body and your heart is beating ultra fast. So the death experience, I wouldn't say to have people go and experience it because it takes practice, cultivation, and it may just be that you experience it. Who knows? It's not important. But the death state is that the body finishes and you leave. Is it painful? Well, whatever you're feeling that you consider to be pain will be painful. Sitting in a chair could be painful. Is how you think about what the state of the posture you're in feels for you. So people should not add too much to dying. It's just the way it is. It's just you leaving the body.
So in Buddhism, there's, an infinite number of heavens. And I guess, a lot of people don't even think about this, but even in Judeo-Christian beliefs, they talk about the seven heavens, and there are different aspects in there that we generally don't discuss very often. We just tend to think of heaven as one generic thing. So these heavens that exist, why would one person go to one heaven versus, say, another one?
Their deeds and the karma that's created from those things. Your thoughts, your speech, your actions create outcomes. They're nourishers of outcomes. Okay, we plant the cause, we plant the seed, we nourish it in a certain way. If you want good crop this season, we nourish the soil a certain way, we tend to it the proper way, and we get good crops. If you want bad crops, then you just do half the work, and you'll get really bad tomatoes. It's just that. It's really simple. It's not very complicated. Why some go to one place and some go to the other is just because of how they are.
What they call in cultivation affinities, right?
Well, yeah, basically, you have affinities with something because you've planted the causes for that something, and your energy, or eventually your mind, resonates with that something, and you get attracted to it. For example, if I want a job, I think of the job I want, where I want to go, the kind of people I want around me, the kind of opportunities, and the things I want to do in that job. I think about it, I contemplate it, And I imagine sending this thought out. Imagination is key to everything. It's not separate from you. You need to be able to create images and things in your mind. You need to be open to that, So I take these ideas, whatever, and I send it out. Where am I sending it to? To my mind. I want it to come to me. There's no out of my mind. There's no in of my mind. There's no out of yours or in of yours either. So I put this thought out. I send this vibration. And what happens? In due time, conditions arise where I can get opportunities for those specific things I'm looking for. I get what I want without having the wanting feeling for it. I know this is good, so I put out the idea. And it just comes because I'm not wanting it with that feeling of want. So when we're doing stuff, we tend to just do things. Throw our emotions, our thoughts, do things with our body, do things with our mouth, do things with our mind, pay attention to our senses, and really build up worldviews based on our sense. And then what happens? The accumulation of all the things we've done add up and pull us or pull our mind to those realms, or pull our mind to the vibration of the things we've done, basically.
So in Buddhism, they discuss the cycle of death and rebirth. I believe it's called samsara. So if one were to transgress into one of the heavenly realms, would you be there eternally, or is that just a temporal existence as well?
Temporary. Nothing's eternal until it is. Heavenly realms are temporary. Even God has a lifespan. Even immortals seem immortal, but they have a lifespan. Probably, I think, is around 10,000 years. There's a death of the gods in the godly realms, death of those in the heavens too. When a god starts to die, their clothes decay. They start to sweat. They start to smell. Then they realize their time is coming. Once you're in those heavenly realms, usually you forget to cultivate. You think, wow, this is so great. And then time just goes so fast, and boom, you find yourself in another realm. Just like here, 80 years, 90 years, you're gone. You find yourself someplace else. But if you end up in the realms and you have the affinities to cultivate, maybe you end up in the heavens. You have the affinities to cultivate. You cultivated in the human realm for several lifetimes. Then you're in the heavenly realms. Boom. And now you got teachers there. You got people. You're attracting these beings that want to help you cultivate more, so you don't get stuck back in the realms, because you're still stuck in the cycle of birth and death. You just have a longer lifespan now. So you cultivate hard, you cultivate really hard, and then all of a sudden you find yourself back as a human. Well, great, you had the affinities, you nourished the affinities to become a human again. Now you can continue cultivating. And then maybe in your next 2 lifetimes you end up back in the heavens, cultivate more, and then you end up in a higher realm where your lifespan is even longer.
Why would you want to be a human again, though?
Well, how do I put it this way? If you're cultivating and you end up in the heavenly realms, and you're not quite getting it, you're practicing, you're really going for it, but you're not breaking certain views. You still attach to certain desires that lock you in, but you got the merits. You got the merit and virtue that allows you to have a human body again. You don't know that. That's just an outcome that just happens. But maybe that's just how it happened. You cultivated enough, but you only have the merits to become a human again. So what happens? You become reborn as a human, but you can still cultivate. If you have the mind that says, I vow that I will, if I am to be reborn as a human, okay, a male, because nothing against you women, but you gotta understand, women have chemical processes that cause the body to go off balance elementally, which causes emotions to become disrupted very strongly. Okay, so what happens is it makes it difficult to keep strong focus on what you're doing. But for the men, it's hard because the men have a very strong sexual mind. They attach to feeling very, very quickly, physical feeling very quickly and very strongly. So their attachment to physical or sexual desire is very strong, but it can be overcome relatively easy than it is to overcome the emotional disruptions that happen because of the woman's chemical changes monthly, and just because the body is made up that way. It's not bad. I mean, women can do it, and women do it. It just means, you have to do a lot more. That's why there's an extra 100 more precepts in the Buddhist practices for women monks, women for nuns. Sorry. It wasn't discrimination on the women. It was just saying this is what happens with you physically. And just so you can be guarded against specific things, do these practices so you don't fall off. So you would want to have a physical body, a human body. So because human body is both yin and yang, it can go both ways. Ghost realms, hell realms, whatnot, demonic realms, or immortal, God, high yang energies, that kind of thing. It can go either way in the human body. So it's a very good vessel to practice. I mean, you have enough suffering just to wake you up, and then you have enough blessings just to let you know things can be okay, things can be good.
So would you have to cultivate as much yang qi in this lifetime as possible to become, say, an immortal?
It's not that you have to specifically focus on just yang qi. It's just lessening the attachments of the things going on in the mind, lessening the attachments of what you feel, basically lessening your views, your attachments to your senses.
So is the ultimate goal then, is there anything beyond becoming a Buddha? I would assume a Buddha is more higher up the ladder than, say, even an immortal. But is there anything beyond a Buddha, or is that it? When you hit Buddhahood, you're the man.
Well, let's just rephrase, being a Buddha, becoming a Buddha, and state when we have fully accomplished the realization of our inherent wisdom, and we have left the cycle of birth and death. That's pretty good. That's pretty much it. When you leave the cycle of birth and death, you're not coming back unless you purposely plant the causes to do so. It just means that you have the ability to jump in and out. Make a body, leave the body. There was a story about an old Chan monk who was walking past a bunch of other monks discussing on how detached they are. I'm more detached to things than you are. You're not detached more than me. They're jumping back and forth. And he started laughing. He goes, yeah, let me show you guys what detachment's all about. He goes, let's see, can you beat this? He jumped up, grabbed the tree limb, and died. And he had the ability to leave whenever he wanted.
Is that a true story?
Yeah. I just wish I remember the damn names. I wish I could really, I remember, I hear the stories from monks, and then, 7 years, 8 years go by and forget, But the gist of the story is this monk had the ability to leave at will. Come back was not important for him. He's just like, okay, let's see how detached you really are. He jumped up, grabbed the tree, and left. So I mean, being in the state of the realization of one's inherent wisdom completely means you're not taken by the senses. The senses are no longer in control. Your six senses are no longer in control. You left the cycle of birth and death. You have complete wisdom. That's what we call in this realm a Buddha. In another realm, it's something different. Okay, I just don't know how to speak that language, so I can't really tell you. Only we call it Buddha, but that's just because we have that language. We got to stop holding on to the language. Just eradicate the word Buddha altogether. And what you have is this feeling, this state of thusness, that even the computer screen that's right in front of you is not separate from you, but it's not the same as you. We understand that it arises from this original nature. And we call it original nature. Our words in the Buddhist teachings, and then we see in all the other teachings as we progress, are just expedients. They're just as impermanent as everything else around us.
So these Buddhas or realized beings and bodhisattvas, they could reincarnate on our world, maybe just to spread a teaching or to try and rescue people type thing?
Yeah, and when we talk of spreading teachings, we also have to eradicate the idea of propagation. I have to teach the Buddhist teaching, so I got to come back and teach. No, it's not like that. It's these people have affinities with me, and I have affinities with them. Let me teach them how to get off the cycle of birth and death. It's only the cycle of birth and death because they're attached. They're attached to their views. They're attached to their greed, their anger, their ignorance. They're attached to their desires. That's what keeps them here. That's what keeps us here. Not just on this planet, on different planets or different realms or different universes altogether. So they're like, look, guys, we can't make you wake up. But if you have conditions with me that allow me to speak or allow me to be in your presence so I can tell you something that may put the light bulb over your head, then I'll be there.
Could there be a risk though that, if you were a bodhisattva and you incarnated on this realm, could you not start accumulating negative karma again? I mean, probably your mind at that level would be in a state where you wouldn't do that anyway, but I guess theoretically could a bodhisattva kind of accumulate negative karma?
Negative karma is accumulated because of views about what one does. You can't just turn around and say, I'm killing someone because it's nice. No, it doesn't work. A bodhisattva will not create negative karma, but they will plant the seeds in order to give them this condition to manifest a physical body. Maybe they'll be reborn as through a womb and be reborn throughout that way, and live life as a normal person, as everyone does. But they know they're doing this, but they're not conscious. The body or the conscious state does not know, but they are in total knowing that this is not real. So it may look like they're, creating a negative afflictions, negative things, but because of their state, that's not actually the case. But only we can see the afflictions because we have the capacity only to see the negative afflictions. We only have the capacity to see relativity. When we can get past that, we can see that relativity is impermanent.
Interesting. So
remember, there's in the bodhisattva stages, this is about 55 stages of bodhisattvahood. And each one is just higher and higher. Why do we call them states or stages of bodhisattvahood? Once you're a bodhisattva, isn't that it? You're a bodhisattva? No, you're still perfecting your wisdom. You're still perfecting your practices. Well, go ahead.
I sort of lost my train of thought, but
Sorry.
So I guess it's such a complex topic.
It is a complex topic, and sometimes, what I'm speaking of, people say, well, that's just the Buddhist view. Well, I'm sorry, that's not how I was raised. I wasn't raised with the Buddhist education to speak of Buddhist view. I was raised to utilize the language that lets people understand the focus of these teachings. I'll just give you an experience I had. Excuse me. When I was in one of the Buddhist temples out here in China, we have a place called one of the temples had a Pure Land Hall. No, I'm sorry. It was the Rebirthing Hall. Okay, that was a hall specifically for people who are ready to die. And those people did not want to die in a hospital. Okay, they didn't want life support. They're fine with the way life went and they're ready to go. So what do they do in this rebirthing hall? They go and lie down in a semi-comfortable bed, covered up with a sheet, specifically with lotus leaves imprints on it and whatnot, something to keep them in their focus of where they wish to go. They want to be reborn in the Pure Land, Amitabha's Pure Land. So the thing is that they recite really sincerely, and Amitabha, Avalokitesvara, and Mahastama Prapta, or I'll just put the Chinese way, Amitofo, Guanxin Pusa, and Dashizhi Pusa show up when this person is ready to take off and guide them to the Pure Land. And that person is reborn in the lotus and stay in that lotus until the time is right for them to come out of the lotus and appear in this Pure Land and cultivate to become Bodhisattva, to become a Buddha, and then go return. That's the function of this land, is to cultivate to become a Buddha, attain Nirvana, attain that straight, great ultimate state, and say, hey, I'm ready to go back and help all the people who helped me in my lifetimes. Okay, that's what you're going to do. That's just what happens when you reach that full state of highest compassion. You're like, look at all these people running around like chickens without a head. It's just what overtakes you. In our discriminating minds go, F that. I want to go sit at that mountain and relax. But really at that high state, you're going to go, I don't want to be here anymore. I got to go out and do something with them. And it's not that you have a desire or want. It's because you know that those people are just going to be keeping on their cycle over and over again. So in this temple, in this Pure Land rebirthing hall, all the monks of the temple and all the lay cultivators who were in the temple cultivating there, they took shifts, 4-hour shifts, until the person, 4-hour shifts until this person was ready to go, and they shipped out. So we would sit in the hall, and we aid the person in reciting. Maybe they cannot loudly recite with their mouth loud. Maybe they're only thinking about it in their mind, but maybe they'll get overcome by false thinking. They think about their family, they think about their loved ones, their dog, their pets, whatever. And they attach. And they forget that reciting is important, so they don't hold on to their attachments. So we recite with them. So if they start dozing off into a daydream, they get awakened by everyone reciting. Okay, so we're reciting, an hour goes by, 2 hours go by, and nothing happens, and the next 4-hour shift comes, and we switch people, and the next set people go. And then towards, the third shift, I return with my group, whatever, and everyone's reciting, I'm reciting, and we're all focusing on sending the recitation to this person, help them fulfill their vow of being reborn in the Pure Land. All of a sudden, while I'm reciting, my eyes are open, I'm looking at everybody, the room gets, the recitation was so loud, but the room got quiet. And then all I saw, literally at the foot of the person's bed, was this space opening up, bright light entering, and 3 beings coming out. Amitabha, Amitabha, Guanxin Pusa, and Dashaja Pusa. They come out, and this is a woman who was lying on the bed ready to die. They come out. The woman, it was as though it didn't even get up from the body, sitting up, and then turn off the bed and whatnot. It was as though they got out, and all of a sudden, the 3 of them were there, and all of a sudden, this being just stood up. It was just like standing up right at the foot of the bed, looking at these 3 beings, looking at these Buddhas. And the being, the spirit, or that mind that appeared in front of the 3 Buddhas transformed into a man's body. It is said that when you're reborn in the Pure Land, you have a man's body. Not because women's body is bad or whatever like that. Actually, you don't have any sex. There's no sexual organ. Okay, so there's no distinction between male or female. But it's said that the characteristics are of a man's characteristics. So there's really no discrimination here. It's just the way that things happen at that specific state. So they took her off. She got up, walked right through this space that opened up, this light, and right in the light you've seen a totally different background of just buildings and trees, and it was just different. And then it closed up. It was almost like a portal opening up and then closing up again. And everyone was still reciting, but the room felt charged when that happened. It was highly charged. And when it finished, it was still highly charged. And it was bright. To me, it was very bright, but everyone was still reciting, and I'm just going with it, still reciting. I wasn't going, whoa, that was great. It was just simple, okay, this is what's just happening. I'm used to seeing stuff in this specific mannerism, so it wasn't surprising to me. And then the recitation stopped, whatever. The next group came in, and then they checked the body. They checked to see if her feet were cold or warm. If the feet were warm, well, most likely was not going to the Pure Land. But the head was warm, and the body was soft. It wasn't hardened. Uh, there was no smell. Nothing smelled decrepit. Nothing was looking like this person was dead. It still had color. Of course, just died. The next day, the day after that, the body was still soft, not hard. The color was still vibrant in the skin. Um, Looked just like the person was sleeping, and the head was still warm. And then they have to cremate the body, and they found little crystallized portions within the body. After they cremated, we call them sharira, you know. And that's what happened within this practice. Now we can't say, oh, it's just the way the religion is. Why not? No, I'm talking about function. This is the tool, and its function is this, and the outcome of utilizing the function is this. But people over many years, they create sects, they create groupings and belief systems based on what that function does, and then it takes people away from seeing the true function and just see the superficial covering of the function. I've seen it happen twice with this rebirthing hall. Someone did ask me, did that person go to the Pure Land? Someone had told them that it's perhaps I was able to see something. I did say yes, but I didn't want them to think I was anything special, and I'm not special. It's just what happens in cultivation. If you're a mechanic and no one else is a mechanic around you, everyone's like, wow, you're great, you can fix everything. But then when you have like 20 mechanics around you, you're just a mechanic. Oh yeah, you're a mechanic. Okay, great. So it's no big deal what happened. But now let's get, in that aspect of, I was in the temple. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we're kind of approaching an hour there, so maybe we should wrap it up. But that's probably that's probably a good story to wrap it up on, end with a little bit of mystery. And
there you go. Excellent. Well, I just want to say, people don't go and trying to do don't try to go do the outer body experiences on purpose. I mean, there's reasoning for that. Just to see what things are like when you don't have your body. Practice what you're practicing. Meaning practice your meditation, practice wholesome practices, don't do stupid things, don't do things for power. You can get taken by your own mind, literally. And it's not really the point here. The point is you got to go and do something wholesome. Practice something good. Get your wisdom. You realize what's really going on.
All right. Well, thanks, Lynn, and thank you for listening to Expedient Means with Lynn A. Way on Time Monk Radio. Please tune in next week for a discussion of merit and virtue. And as always, to quote the final chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the sage does not accumulate. The more he assists others, the more he possesses. The more he gives to others, the more he gains.